Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this webinar and a coffee break to discuss the 5 barriers preventing you from being a modern cloud company. I'm Jay Messina, Director of Marketing at Proterra, and I have with me Alan Manuel, our Chief Product and Marketing Officer.
Hello and good morning. Hope you all enjoyed the coffee kits. I think you're all a little bit ahead of me. I haven't had mine yet. So you guys are ahead of me. Looking forward to spending the next half an hour or so with you, and looking forward to any questions that you guys have during the session itself.
And for any of you watching on demand, be sure to look out for our next webinar and a coffee break so you can also get your premium coffee kit mailed to you to enjoy during the event. So Alan, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. All right. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us this morning on this webinar, 5 barriers preventing you from being a modern cloud company. For those of you who don't know, we are Proterra. We have been in the business over 20 years, helping companies modernize their enterprise applications, primarily SAP, but also other enterprise applications, and bringing those apps to AWS and Microsoft Azure. As I said, company's been in business over 20 years. We were the first company to run a production SAP instance on Microsoft or on AWS, and we were also an early partner with Microsoft Azure, and we're a certified partner with SAP as well. We've done over 500 migrations and have over 2,500 systems under management today. And to those coming into the chat, good morning. I see these little chats popping up, and I love how it's breaking up the flow here. And for those of you who don't have your coffee kits, we will get them to you. And be sure to put your questions in the chat again as we go. Let's go on to the next one, Jamie. Oh, next slide. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is the 5 barriers that are preventing companies from being modern. And I wanted to just step back and talk about what we call the cloud modernization journey. So this is a framework for how we look at organizations who are taking their existing systems today and modernizing them, which essentially means moving to the cloud and implementing some new technologies. Pretty much just 4 phases of companies that we tend to deal with. The first is organizations, which really is most companies out there that have multiple enterprise applications and maybe do not have their cloud strategy in place yet. And one of the things that we do at Proterra is help organizations put in place a better plan to get their modernization journey started. And at the end of this session, we'll talk a little bit more about how you guys can get started there. The second is companies who are doing that migration and they've gotten their core enterprise apps, maybe their SAP up on the cloud. And in general, what most companies are looking for are some very pragmatic benefits, such as lowering costs, increasing their service quality, and upgrading their technology. So we find that most companies are in sort of these first 2 phases. Either they've not done that cloud migration, or maybe they have some apps there. Now, some more advanced companies, they've begun to really tap into the power of the cloud. So not only do they have their enterprise apps, but now, for example, they've started looking at how they can implement DevOps practices within their organization. Maybe they're going to move their desktops to the cloud with virtual desktops, or implementing SaaS or PaaS, which is a platform as a service, or they've taken advantage of some of the more advanced security capabilities that are available on the cloud. And so in this phase, these are organizations that have gone beyond maybe the basics of lowering costs and improving quality, and they're starting to be able to react more nimbly or more quickly to their organization, roll out capabilities more quickly, and drive process automation. And then finally, on the right, some of our customers are here, and this is where I think a lot of the industry is going, is really trying to get better business insights out of the collection of data that's available both on the cloud through their enterprise apps, through new apps, maybe through SaaS apps, as well as through on-prem data sources. So really looking at the cloud as a place not only to house the data today and for the future, but also bringing to bear some more advanced analytics tools that will help the customer get real-time insights into some of the metrics driving their business today. So that's really kind of the most advanced companies that we see, and most companies are not quite there yet. But the goal really is to have the organizations make more and more of their decisions based upon data collected from many different applications. Okay. All right. So, and as I mentioned, we've been doing this a long time. We're partners with AWS, with Microsoft Azure and SAP. So that's kind of the journey. I know we're going to go through the barriers in a couple of minutes, but first, I think we have some data about where customers are today, right, Jamie? So back to you.
Yes, we do. And Proterra conducts surveys throughout the year. And one of our most recent surveys was to gauge where you and your peers are in this cloud modernization journey. So we'll share a couple insights with you. The first was, why are you and your peers looking to modernize with cloud? Well, 60% of respondents, Alan, said they were looking to implement new services. And interestingly enough, it's no longer the focus on just reducing costs, but really to implement the services that you talked about in that right-hand side of that last slide. The next that we have are, where are most companies today on their cloud modernization journey? And nearly 3/4 of all respondents said that they are still defining the roadmap. As you can see on the pie chart on the right, either most companies are needing assistance in building the business case for cloud, they don't have plans at this time, or they're just getting their project started. So really a large portion of you and your peers are still trying to get this started.
Seems pretty common with what I've seen as well in some of my conversations.
Absolutely. And then lastly, what version of SAP are you and your peers running today? Not a big surprise here with regards to the last slide, with 66% still on SAP ECC, and with 5 years left before the SAP S/4HANA push. This really does ring true with where we see most prospects today, most other companies.
Okay.
So in summary, 60% of all of you and your peers are looking to implement new services, but 73% need assistance in defining this roadmap. So Alan, this summary here really, I think, speaks to some of the barriers that you are about to showcase.
Yeah, that's right. So we got this 60% of organizations are really going to the cloud to implement new services. So that's in addition to the sort of the cost savings that we're talking about. However, most of those are still in the very early stage, defining their roadmap. And for those companies that are running SAP, it's very interesting. I know we talk a lot about companies on ECC or SAP, Business Suite on HANA or S4, but it looks like the majority are running ECC. So why don't we go on to the next slide, Jamie? We'll go through the 5 barriers. Okay, how do I get started? Okay, so the first thing I think that you guys need to think about in terms of being modernized is, number one, accept that cloud is a viable option. What I mean by this is we've been in this business a long time, and probably 3-4 years ago even, there was a lot of reluctance among organizations to accept cloud as a viable option, either because of security or process or some other perceived risk. We spend our time all day, every day, talking to customers who are now sort of on the other side of the fence and have said, you know what, we have to have a cloud strategy. My boss wants it, my users want it. So really, step number one is really to accept that now cloud is a viable option. It's something where, like I said in the past, it may not have been appropriate for many organizations, but really now it's matured for a number of reasons. We can walk you guys through that. Okay. Number two is, don't wait for application upgrades. We get a lot of questions from customers who are saying, well, we want to move to the cloud, but we also have project ABC that's on our path, and we're trying to figure out, should we do this project first or should we move to the cloud? In general, and every case is different, but in general, what we recommend is make your move to the cloud as soon as possible. There's a number of reasons why doing any kind of application work is easier once you're on the cloud. Again, we could talk in more detail about that, but in general, don't wait to don't hitch your movement to the cloud on some kind of upgrade. Sort of disconnect those, and you can make your migration, which we can help you do very quickly. Do that if you can't, even before some of your application upgrade projects. Okay. Number three is obviously research with industry peers and analysts. Seems kind of funny because we're a vendor, but we're saying go to your industry peers and analysts. From our customer base, what we find is our customers get the best information from their peers. We have case studies, we have customer references we can help you with, but go to industry events. If you're running SAP, go to your local ASUG. Do that research with your industry peers. They'll give you the best advice about what their modernization journeys are. We're going to kind of summarize that information as we've done, but I think anyone who's trying to put your modernization plan together, work with your industry peers. Our happiest customers have done that before working with us. And then finally, identify internal stakeholders and focus the business case on cost reduction and supporting business change. Basically cost reduction, and then if you have any kind of M&A event or organizational change, those are sort of two easy or more straightforward ways to communicate the value of moving to the cloud. There's more value as you adopt more services, but in terms of sort of having to convince your user community or the financial community or whoever are the stakeholders, I would focus a lot on cost reduction, and then a lot on if there is some kind of business event, for example, an acquisition that's coming, and you want to put your organization in a more agile or more flexible mode to be able to support that. Those seem to be the most compelling business cases that we've seen customers make. Okay. All right. If there's questions, guys, again, just put it into the chat. I'm watching that on my other screen here. Okay. So barrier number two. So now you're trying to figure out. Okay, maybe I've done that business case, and now I've got a lot of options. So how do I help kind of formalize my modernization plan? So let's go to that. Pop that up. Okay. At this point, you've decided, hey, cloud is good for my organization. You're going to get a lot of benefits when you move your SAP and the related applications to the cloud, not just for SAP itself, but from having access to the data that's inside SAP. And we'll get to that sort of in a future slide. So I think here you need to decide what your strategy is on SAP and whether the organization is comfortable making that move. We're going to show you a little bit, or we'll tell you in the next point about how we think most organizations should move that. But the first point really is to figure out have you convinced yourselves internally that it's the right move to move your SAP to the cloud? And then it's really a when question. Do I do it now, or do I do it in 6 months, or do I do it in 12 months? If you're still on the weather, still trying to figure out whether the move to SAP to the cloud makes sense, we can have some conversations on that. Our team's been running SAP for a long, long time, over 20 years. We have tons of technical experts. We can talk to you about some of the benefits of moving. And also, if there's, we run into this very frequently, if there's team members within your organization who need some convincing, or who need to understand what that journey could look like, and how organizations like Proterra will protect you during that journey. And if you need to speak with experts who speak SAP, we have that. So that's really the first part for the second barrier, is kind of figure out organizationally, are we all on board with this move of SAP to the cloud or not? And it's two different kind of conversations depending on the answer to that. Okay, the second thing, note coming in, we'll be sending the presentation. Of course, we will be sending it. And also happy to follow up on any of these points. Okay. Generally, after these kinds of talks, then companies who are maybe more ready to have that conversation, we'll sit down with you and just go into this, kind of in more detail. Okay. Number two is get the technical assessment. The technical assessment, almost all the time, we find that companies running SAP have something that isn't, some components that are not, up to date, whether it's operating system, whether it's database, whether it's patching. There's always something that needs to be kind of addressed. And the question is always, how much work do I need to do before I do my migration? How much work should I do afterwards? We have a tool called Proterra RN, which helps automate that assessment. If you go to another vendor, other vendors, I'm sure can help in this area as well. But that step two is really to get a technical assessment of your specific environment. It doesn't take much. With us, a couple of days, we get some basic information from you and can kind of come back and tell you, is this going to be a kind of a straightforward move, or is it going to be more complex? In general, we recommend an as-is migration. So we will upgrade certain aspects of your environment, for example, operating system and database versions, but we don't recommend an application upgrade as part of the migration. That's in general. Your situation may be different. Okay, so that's really step number three. Plan for application upgrades after your cloud migration, especially if you're not quite familiar with the cloud. You'll discover that A lot of the application work is easier to do once you're up on the cloud. It's just more flexible, it's faster, it's easier to provision, all kinds of good benefits. So in general, it's better to do that after you make your move. And then finally, you guys are in a good position today. There's fantastic capabilities from different cloud vendors, and it's a process, frankly, for you to decide who you're going to go with, or maybe you're going to go with multi-cloud. So again, it's a very good time for customers to be looking at the cloud, because you have some great options. And our recommendation here would be just figure out which cloud is the best fit for your overall business. And it may encompass more than just technical capabilities. There may be some other areas as well that are going to influence your decision. So the last point is, don't make a decision based upon one specific piece of technology. Evaluate the breadth of what that cloud provider offers you, and we can help you with that as well. Okay. All right, let's go to barrier number 3. I'm on the cloud. Am I modern? So basically, you've made that move to the cloud. And if anybody is already running their SAP on cloud and wants to, go ahead and type it into the chat. Most people, again, are not there yet. But why don't we go ahead and flip into these answers here. Okay, so I'm on the cloud, or actually maybe you're with a service provider that has kind of a cloud type of environment, maybe a private cloud environment, and you're thinking, hey, why do I need to move? Why do I need to modernize? I've already got somebody that's running my stuff. Okay, so here you have to think about basically, am I getting the best possible service from where I am, from how I'm running, or maybe how someone is running me. So here, what we like to talk, what we like organizations to think about is 2 things. So transparency, continuous management. Transparency is basically, do you know everything that's going on? If you're with a service provider environment, is it easy for you to understand all the maintenance and the upgrades and the management that's being done for your systems? Is it easier for you to understand what your costs are? Is it easy for you to understand what your performance is? So all of the sort of transparency that you might normally associate with other experiences in your daily life. For example, you go and order a package and you can track exactly where that package is at any point in its journey. Can you do the same thing with your IT? Can you track any asset that's being managed and understand how well it's performing, whether it's been patched, whether it's secure, whether it's up to date, et cetera? So that's really sort of the goal in this phase, is get the most modern experience out of having that SAP and your related applications up on the cloud, okay? Generally, we then work with customers to bring the remaining systems onto the cloud. So most companies move to the modernize in phases. So the first phase would be sort of your core apps, and then the next phase would be bringing some of your additional systems. And at this point, also, you might want to be looking at potentially decommissioning some legacy systems that don't make sense to move onto the cloud. And then here, where it says find opportunities for process automation, it's usually at this point that organizations start tapping into some of the automation capabilities of the cloud and start developing some new, sort of smaller applications. Maybe these are applications that run some kind of automation. Maybe these are applications that move data between other applications. So these are sort of the enterprise version of apps. And you're going to have a new set of tools that will allow you to create these more easily on the cloud. So these are the 3 areas that I would think about if you're already on the cloud: is getting the best possible experience, the rest of your systems, and then starting to move into the sort of the DevOps world and putting automation on top of your enterprise apps. Okay, security is a big topic. It rates much more than the 3 or 4 minutes I'm going to be able to give it. So I'm going to just give you some quick items here. Okay, number 1, actually number 0 is cloud is secure enough to run your enterprise applications. There's big companies that are doing it. It's there. The maturity is there in terms of the technology. Okay, so now the question is really, how do we use that technology? Okay. All right, so number 1, the biggest vulnerability is misconfigurations and users. So very simple example here is, let's take storage. In the old days, if storage was misconfigured, then perhaps another user in your organization might have access to the data there. And so you had to be careful. Okay. Now with cloud, if your storage is misconfigured, it might not be someone in your organization, it might be someone in the public that can have access to that. So it's a very basic example. You would never do this, but most issues that we see come from misconfiguration of some standard cloud services. And of course, this happens because you're new to it. It's something new. You haven't managed it before. It gives you great power and flexibility. Maybe you give that flexibility to your users, and maybe there's some kind of misconfiguration. So that's really number one, which is either yourself or work with a company like Proterra who understands how to protect against misconfigurations. That's one of the biggest vulnerabilities. Okay, and the other is your users. So what we have found is the one of the biggest sources of data breach is phishing attacks, and so these are not technical at all. It might be something as simple as there's a trick that we've seen. Users will receive an email that says, "Oh, enter this code onto this website," and it looks sort of like a multi-factor authentication. It's very similar to you need to reset your password. Something emails you, you type a code in, etc. And it's just a way to it's a trick, and it's a way to trick users into entering or resetting their credentials, and boom. And it's because we've gotten so used to a certain authentication method from our consumer apps that when we see it from our enterprise apps, we kind of react in the same way. Okay. So unfortunately, users have been trained to be a vulnerability point. Email happens to be one of the biggest vulnerabilities today that we see through phishing attacks. So you'll want to work with someone or implement yourself some techniques to help you protect against those two main vulnerabilities. Okay, so number two, seek professional help. In general, what we recommend is in the area of security, at the very least, work with a professional firm that has experience managing security, at least to augment your team. This is a service that we provide. We can also help audit what you've got today and help you put in place some best practices. A lot of areas of the cloud are fit for exploration and fit for learning and fit for discovery. There's things like fail fast, fail early, that kind of philosophy. Security is not one of them. Okay, so security is not an area that you want to be experimenting in and trying and seeing if it fails. This is an area where from the beginning you want to have professional help and you want to have the right systems in place. Okay, and finally, be prepared for an attack. Attacks are happening right now. You are under attack right now, whether you're on the cloud or not. This is just a fact of life today. And, anytime anything is plugged in, it's now subject to attack, whether it's through the internet, whether it's through an email. There's many. You'd be surprised at all the ways that whether it's through an ad on a social media site that detects that maybe you're logged in from a corporate network. So there's many ways into your systems, and I can say with pretty much 100% certainty that your systems are under attack right now. It's just a constant threat, and you need to be prepared to defend against it, but also if something happens to react quickly. And of course, we have a number of services in this area, and we can help you out here. So I would say if there's anything that you immediately should go to a firm for, it would probably be security. Okay. All right, let's go to barrier number 5. Final barrier. Okay, am I getting the best return on cloud modernization? So, okay, you've listened to all these barriers, you listen to the data. I'm doing all this stuff, but am I really getting everything out of my move to the cloud, everything out of my cloud modernization journey that I could? So let's go ahead and look at these steps here. Okay. All right. Like I said, we've been doing this a long time. We've been helping companies move to the cloud, and the cost benefits, the service benefits, et cetera. These are fantastic benefits. But really, what we find is the best return for our customers come when they can start delivering better insights to the business, when they can discover things that they didn't know of before, generally around, let's say, operational things or customer interactions. So not really techie stuff, but more business process stuff. And so when the organization can find patterns, can get insights, can help move assets more, manage assets more effectively within the organization. So that's really when a company will, our customers get the best return. They go back to their board, they say, yes, I'm saving money on my IT, but look, I saved 10 times this much money in the organization because I implemented this new process. So steps here. Number 1, identify a set of metrics that are valuable to the business but difficult to obtain. SAP, for example, is a powerful application. Sometimes it's hard to find out what's going on inside there. the way to get the best value here is think about what's important to the business, not IT metrics, but business metrics, for example, asset effectiveness, and figure out if those are difficult to obtain today or prior to modernization, and then put in place a plan to surface those through data visualizations. Okay, so basically, what the most modern companies are doing is they're using the cloud to help unlock some data or insights from their existing applications. Take all your data, put an analytics layer on top, put some models on top, run that, train your users to be able to visualize their own data, and that's really where you're going to get the best return. And then number 3, formulate your approach to data science. Many organizations are saying, hey, we're going to bring on board some data scientists. Many cannot afford to do that. Okay, so you've got a great spectrum of capability here, from hey, we're going to have a completely new data science department, down to hey, I don't have any new staff, but I want to bring some capabilities to my users to have them visualize data on their own. Once you start talking about this stuff on barrier 5, that's when you're really going to see the best return, because within the IT organization, you'll be able to save X for the company, but within the business at large, you'll be able to save 10X or 100X. So the real return is going to come back when you start going back to the business and saying, hey, we've found some insights, or we've enabled you, line of business users, to discover your own insights. That involves underneath it a whole set of capabilities. Stuff's got to be on cloud or accessible from the cloud, a data analytics layer, some models, as I mentioned, a whole set of services here. But if you're really looking for the maximum bang for your buck, you want to be in this universe here of talking about getting insights that are difficult to provide in the old world, but that can be provided new now in the new world of running on cloud. Okay, so this is really the big return here if you can get to this step. Okay. Or I think that's it. Those are the 5 barriers. If there's any questions, again, guys, in the chat, go ahead and put it in. If you don't have your coffee kit, throw your email address in there. But I think that's it for the 5 barriers. So Jamie, over to you.
Thank you so much. This is fantastic. Wherever you are on the cloud journey, the cloud modernization journey, that second slide that Alan had showed today, there is an opportunity to have a further roadmap in your hand and to hit the ground running, whether it's in the next few weeks or early in 2022. You can have a cloud modernization roadmap in your hand. Simply visit proterra.com/schedule-demo or email us at info@proterra.com. We would love to discuss where you are in that journey, what barriers you are facing, and how we can get you onwards in the cloud modernization journey. Alan, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
In follow-up, we will send you these slides as well as some case studies that speak to each of these different points in the journey to cloud modernization. Thank you so much for attending, and any additional questions, please do email us at info@proterra.com. Have a great day.